This video is going to need some context for those of you that don't follow me super closely and aren't aware of the things I'm involved in. Basically, I have a CSGO team that I sort of run, manage, etc. It's just kind of just me and a few friends. We just kind of just do it to fuck around and have some fun. But we decided to enter into a CSGO tournament on July the 2nd to July the 4th. We got knocked out on July the 3rd. Pretty quickly, we lost all of our games. I was expecting that. I was fully expecting that. But here's the thing. Someone in our Discord server that we did play CS with for a time apparently has made a video talking about the events of Epic LAN 33, which was the tournament that we played. And their understanding of the events is so fundamentally flawed that I had to make this video to address it. Now, their video is unlisted. I'm not going to link to it because there's some transphobia in the comments, to put it simply. And also, I don't really want to give this much attention. I just want to address these claims. I want to make it as obvious as possible what really sort of actually went down and give a bit more context on this, because I did speak about the event on a Twitch stream a few days ago. I spoke very sort of broadly about it. I went into detail on a few specifics, but I didn't really speak much about it. And this video is good. It's good. Let me just say that. About half the video is talking about me, so that really inflates my ego. I'm kidding, but yeah, no, that's really funny to me, that about half the videos is exclusively about me. So let me quickly explain why this video was made. Apparently it was made, according to the description, because we silenced the person who made it. What he's referring to is the fact that I banned him from my Discord server. Why would I have done that? I must have had a reason, right? Simple. This screenshot. Read it. Take your time to process it. Ignoring the fact that the message he's replying to is blatantly transphobic, there's some misconceptions in this image alone. First of all, the thing he's saying about skill ceilings is so horrifically misguided. Jordan and James, two of the players on a team, only have about 1,000 hours. They are nowhere near the skill ceiling. They have a lot they can learn and a lot they can improve on. I have about 4,000 hours, so I has a similar amount. I still don't feel like I'm necessarily near my skill ceiling, and there are things that I can improve on and work on, and I know that. And we'll get to that later on, because he mentions some of the things that I feel as if I can work on. As for Sai, he's just kind of doing his thing. I don't know. I don't really know what's going on there. But yeah, no, we're not at or near our skills. I mean, I'm probably near my skill ceiling, but there's still some stuff I can work on. I wouldn't say I'm at my skill ceiling. So, secondly, the statement about trying a stunt like this again. He seems to think that this was, well, obviously his opinion seems to have changed, because in the video he talks about the actual reasons why I did it that I mentioned in that stream. But his opinions seem to have changed, and his original opinion seems to have been that we did it because we wanted to, it was like a stunt or something, like we thought it would be, we thought we'd actually have a chance. I didn't think we'd have a chance. I knew full well we were probably gonna bomb out of this immediately, but let's not go too hasty. And the other thing as well in this image is this last bit. For Aston was Firebuster in the tournament. Just do face it 3 tournaments so you don't lose both your money and pride, as if this was a matter of pride or something. It was a fucking tournament. We played it, we lost, we had people with 1,000 hours or less. Yeah, we weren't gonna win. What pride is there to be lost there? Like, we knew we weren't gonna do well. Like, but I don't get it. Anyway, let's get on with the actual video. Let's let him speak, and let's see what his interpretation of the tournament was.
This is a short essay on the sad experiment that was Team Irresolution's entry and immediate thrashing at the Epic Clan 33 tournament. I have a unique perspective on this matter, as I've had prolonged contact with all members that participated in the tournament and have been privy to information that easily shows errors in judgment and a failure to organise that eventually led them down the path of failure. This analysis shall be split into 3 parts: the team's organisation and members' actions, the live stream stomp, and finally the official response from the owner and team leader of Irresolution, Emma.
So this is something he does several times throughout the video, where he calls me the team leader, and I don't know where this came from, because I've never really considered myself to be the team leader. I always consider myself to be the manager and owner. Like, I'll make decisions from time to time in regards to how things work and how things are run, but I don't really... I'm pretty hands-off with it. I like to sort of see what other people's opinions are and make decisions around what everybody thinks as sort of what they want to do. I've never considered myself to be the team leader. I don't make team leader decisions, in my opinion. I'm very much just the face of a resolution, and that's about it, and sort of the manager and owner, that's it. I don't really do anything that in-depth with it. Maybe he doesn't see it that way. Maybe I've made like a couple big decisions that he thinks are like, oh, this is like a team leader thing to do, but that's not how I see myself in regards to a resolution. It's never how I've seen myself.
I'll break down a team by this tier list that is my guess on who is the most desired, and the eventual roster. In S tier, we have 2 inactive players, Cameron and Bartholomew, desired most for their raw ability.
Okay, so now this is funny. Cameron was originally planned to be our 5th for this tournament, but he never really talked to us. He never really got back to us. The one match we played with him, he never really communicated. He was very quickly falling off on my list of, I would be fine with playing with him. So Cameron was very quickly, for me at least, being written off. If he was going to be put on this tier list, I would put him at A, maybe B, not S. And for Matty, well, he made it abundantly clear before the tournament that he would not play tournaments at all, ever. He was just always going to be a kind of stand in, just kind of goof around, let's play a few games, kind of fun, just kind of fun thing, you know. He was never going to play a proper tournament. So him even being on this tier list is the funniest thing to me, because I never considered him as a potential player for this. I think Sai maybe asked him to play like once or twice, but I would have never done that personally, because like I said, he made it clear he wasn't playing tournaments. That's his choice. I can respect that. Cool. So that leaves the remaining players, which are the 5 that we did eventually play with.
In A tier, there's Emma and Sai, because they are mandatorily part of the team as far as I could tell for this tournament. Below them in B tier are Jordan Aston, because they aren't James. And finally, we have James. He is the resident James. The final roster for the tournament was Emma, Sai, Jordan, Aston, James, which on our tier list that we have procured is the least desired combination. How can this happen when the best outcome is right there? This most likely happened because tickets were bought well before the tournament was going to happen and before the team was organised, and James was one of the ticket buyers.
So I skipped over a little bit where he assembled the ideal perfect team, which was me, Sai, Cameron, Matty, and then either Jordan or Firebuster. But obviously the reason I skipped over that is because we weren't going to have Cameron and we weren't going to have Matty anyway, so the only bit that really matters is the actual team that we ended up going with. And he asks why we didn't go with the ideal team, and it's because, like I said, Matty wasn't going to play. We weren't going to get Matty. Cameron didn't get back to us for, like, ever. He never got back to us once. And in the one match we did have to go off from how we would have played, it wasn't looking ideal, so we didn't have really anything to go off for him. Yes, James did buy a ticket, but it wasn't early. He actually bought a ticket quite a bit later on. And we already knew we were going to play with James anyway, because we already agreed with that with him months in advance. We already knew roughly who our roster for this was going to be before the tournament took place. We knew it was going to be me, Sai, Jordan almost definitely James, and then one other person. And it wasn't going to be Matty, because he wasn't going to play tournaments. It wasn't going to be Cameron, because, like I said, he never got back to us, and the one match we did have to experience with him wasn't... I mean, it was a fine match, but, like, the experience with him necessarily wasn't what I would call ideal. So the only person we had was whoever we could get as a fifth, and that was Firebuster. That's why we had the 5 that we had. There isn't, like, a greater mystery behind it. It's literally just... we already planned it. It wasn't a misplan or anything. This was how it was meant to be, except for Aston, obviously. But we wanted whoever we could get for that slot, so it didn't really matter. This was exactly as it was planned to be. There's no mistake here.
Aston and James are basically the same persons in terms of habits and abilities, aside from James likes sniping for some reason.
Aston was much calmer and much nicer to play with than James throughout this tournament. And, in general, this isn't true at all. Calling them the same in terms of habits and abilities, like, sure, skill-wise they might be similar, but outside of James buying more sniper rifles, like you mentioned, but, like, they're really not the same in terms of habits. They are different people. I don't know why you'd say that.
One prevailing issue, aside from the team's lack of optimization in the roster, there was a glaring issue that plagued the members for an extended period of time. They can't schedule or organise for shit.
Yeah, I agree with this. This is completely accurate. We struggled with scheduling and organisation a lot in the month leading up to this. We struggled to find times when everyone could probably play. We struggled to find... we struggled to organise the actual matches and sessions themselves. Yeah, we really didn't have much in place throughout this. Yeah, this is completely accurate.
The organising was initially left to Sai, a mistake, as he was the one who asked for everyone's times that they were available. But then he turned out to also be the same person that just added everyone to see who was available at any time.
I agree. This was a mistake. This shouldn't have happened. We should have been using the schedule and the timetable to decide when everyone was available. We shouldn't have been doing that, and I even told him to use @here to avoid adding people that weren't online on Discord, because that would be annoying for them. Yeah, that was a mistake. I agree with that.
This is the same man, for reference, who would make the most ideal shot caller. Therefore, while he is the best candidate for shot caller in the opinions of the other members, he is not fit to be team leader of a resolution due to there being no manager or coach. And to make up for the lack of a manager or coach, the team leader tries to fill in that void, albeit unsuccessfully.
Okay, now I'm confused, because it sounds like he's claiming Sai is the team leader, but I thought he claimed I was the team leader, so are there 2 team leaders? I don't really get what he's getting at here. I get the underlying point about how we need, like, an actual, like, proper coach and stuff like that, but is he claiming Sai's the team leader? Because he was claiming I was earlier, and he continues to claim that I am later. This confuses me. I don't understand what he's trying to claim here.
Even if we are to ignore the poor handling of the players' schedules, there have been multiple cases of not only no-shows from those invited to practice, but close to the tournament, the organisers themselves failed to show up, so the rest of the members practiced without them.
Correction, I believe this was actually just me that failed to show up. Sai did show up. I had my reasons being that I was trying to fix my sleep schedule in time for the tournament, which is entirely valid, because the second day was in the morning, and I was waking up in the afternoon at that point, so I had an entirely valid reason to go to sleep early and not show up for a few matches. I think that's entirely valid. I don't know about you, but I think that's entirely valid.
Poor discipline from both ends breeds bad results, and this is an issue that can be rectified with either punishments, proper scheduling, or a completely new team who are willing and capable of not dogging training sessions.
Yeah, I agree with this as well. Although these screenshots, the middle one is from somebody who isn't on the team. That's from my sister, who was joking, by the way. She wasn't serious about that. At least I would assume she wasn't, because she tends to joke about stuff like that. And the bottom one from Sai, I don't think was entirely serious either. He's mentioned benching himself before, but it's more of a temporary thing. And we are currently on a break right now, so technically we're all benched right now. So, yeah, these screenshots are a bit disingenuous.
Another problem with a resolution's quote-unquote practice is that it involves Matty quite often. And since they play with someone who isn't part of the active roster, who also tends to carry and be the designated fragger in those games, you can see an issue forming. Morpholimue Dependent Syndrome, MDS, is a debuff that ails the resolution members that play with him regularly, as they play around Matty's capabilities rather than working within their own limits and trying to break them.
Fun fact, I'm actually aware of this. I messaged Sai about this exact thing 2 weeks before the tournament, and said pretty much exactly what you said here. I was aware of this, and I even went a step further and said that people need to be comfortable playing without me, because a lot of the strategy that we currently employ is based around me or Matty opening something up and then playing off that. So I'm entirely aware of that. I'm not stupid. I know that's what's happening, and I brought that up.
Finally, I would like to bring attention to Emma, particularly her god-awful habit of deafening herself to stay focused, leaving the team worse off because of it. As much as I care for her own excuse of undiagnosed something or other, what I do want to lay out in front of you is that the rest of the team has to deal with it. A lack of constant information from Emma's perspective when needed, having to use in-game chats to make callouts instead of the Discord that they use otherwise, and the lack of quick decisions and strategies, like popping off the fly, because you have to think it over quickly. She cannot hear them. It is a massive, massive issue.
Yeah, again, I agree with this. Reluctantly, I agree with this, because I do actually play better often when I'm deafened, because I don't have the constant distraction of people talking about stuff that's irrelevant or whatever. That is actually a real issue for me, and it genuinely does help when I'm deafened. However, I did not deafen myself once throughout this tournament. You can ask anyone on a resolution, I did not deafen myself once. That was not a factor in this tournament. It was a factor in the previous matches. It was a factor in the build-up to the tournament where I was testing server deafening myself so that I could speak normally and everyone could hear me, but they would have to communicate through in-game voice chat. But that was still causing problems. So for the actual tournament itself, I decided, since we haven't had like a proper solution, it would just be easier if I didn't deafen myself and we just played normally, which, to an extent, probably meant that I played worse. But information wasn't an issue. That was not an issue for any of the matches. I can assure you that.
This, on top of her being team leader while having a spine only Boris Johnson would be proud of, shows that her resolution's foundations are a shambles.
Again, not team leader.
And cannot prop up anything that resembles an organised team in its current state. Enough about that. Time to go into the live-streamed game. The live-stream match against UK Generalz, with a Z, was initially not too bad looking. I can understand the intent of rushing from under into con, smoking short, pushing for A, but the execution was so bad that you were punished. You didn't look short. It's your fault for losing that round.
Yeah, I agree with this as well. This is an assessment that I made about it, that we should have looked short. I think I even said this in the live stream a few days ago. We should have had someone looking short, we should have had someone checking it, and I assumed that my smoke was fine, but it obviously wasn't, because it went too deep. But that first round wasn't supposed to be a legitimate proper round. It was just supposed to be a nice meme to start off the start off the streaming match, we wanted to do something a bit silly just to kind of have fun with it and show everyone that, you know, we were just having fun with it on the stream. That wasn't supposed to be a legitimately serious attempt at a first round, although it could have gone well if we did have somebody looking short. I agree with that. And that is a judgment that I've also made, and I think I've even brought it up with the team that if we just had somebody looking short, we could have actually probably had that round.
But the economy of round 4 was the biggest grief of that game. Everyone can agree on that. While I sympathise somewhat with James being tilted after a stupid altercation and the rest of the team suffering, I sure as hell do not sympathise with you forgetting the most powerful mechanic to put someone in their place. Pausing.
To be honest, I agree with this. We rarely used pauses throughout the entire tournament, and we definitely should have used more of them because they are useful. It's like an entire minute of time to breathe, or is it 30 seconds? I forget, but it's time to breathe. It's time to sort of take your mind off what just happened and sort of plan for the next round and sort of discuss what you want to do, or, you know, use it for any amount of reasons. That's the beauty of a pause. But we only actually ended up using one pause throughout the entire tournament, and that was after a team suggested, like, hey, you know, you could probably pause if you wanted to, and then we were like, oh yeah, we probably should. But actually, the only other time we paused as well was a tech pause when James had to go do something, but pausing in this particular instance probably wouldn't have helped us anyway, because the problem occurred so late into the buy period that there were only like a few seconds before the round was about to begin. The amount of time we had to recognise, like, this is going to be a problem, we need to pause, we need to calm down James, was too late. There wasn't enough time for any of us to realise that, I don't think. And then by the time the round actually began, it was just... It was too late at that point, and the round was basically over. But, yeah. That round overall was definitely not good. It was played really badly, it was executed poorly. Yeah, it had issues, without a doubt.
Now, the meta game was something you got demolished in. Not only was the enemy able to tilt you, making you play worse, your internal drama was also lowering morale and left you to play what I would argue is the worst game you played in the entire tournament, without a doubt, after watching all the demos myself.
Like I said, I would agree with this as well. I actually talked about this in the stream again. This is something I talked about in the stream. Between all the issues we had that game, it was definitely our worst match of the day. Or even the entire tournament for that matter. But, I mean, I was just playing badly in that game overall. It wasn't really because of the thing with James. Like, I got past that real quick. I was just missing shots and playing badly in that. But again, I'm not the entire team. Obviously, other people were kind of put down by it, other people were kind of off by it. And in Sai's own words, he thought the game was over, basically, straight away when that happened. So, yeah, that was definitely a bad game for us, and it was definitely the worst game that we played, but I acknowledge that, and I think everyone else on the team would also acknowledge that.
UK Generalz also utilised the pause function themselves, killing momentum after you won a round. Completely negated any positivity you could have gotten from it.
I don't know, actually. From what I remember, I think we were in, like, probably our highest spirits that we've been in the game up until that point, given everything that had happened. I think I don't exactly remember because it's been a while and that game was so bad I'm kind of like blocking it mentally, but I want to say that I was sort of like trying to rally everyone and be like, okay, we've won a round, let's try and get another one maybe, or like, you know, try and keep this going and keep up the speed. I was sort of talking throughout the pause to try and like keep up that positivity, because silence in that time isn't going to help anyone. We need somebody to actually keep everyone up, because I knew that game was going badly after the like initial thing in round 4, and even though it didn't affect me personally, like I could tell it was affecting other people, which is why I tried to do that.
And they proceeded to go uncontested for the rest of the game. Like, you not using a pause yourselves at any point in the game as well was very unfortunate. You needed a break in that game to gather yourselves. You must agree with that.
Like I said earlier, yeah, we should have used pauses in more of the games than just that one. We never used any pauses throughout the entire tournament.
My final comment that can be said fully without countering Emma's perspective on things.
What is that supposed to mean?
Is that the execution was way too slow. Regardless of practice, regardless of how many smokes you know, surely you can throw them fast enough to not allow the enemy to either push, set up, or do both simultaneously.
I agree, but the overall speed and aggression of every team we played against in this tournament was unlike anything we've ever seen. Even if you watch proper pro games, I don't think you normally see as much aggression as the teams in this tournament were playing with. British CS is very, very aggression-focused, which is strange, given that it's not aggression-focused in other places in the world. And I think that kind of threw everyone off initially, because we weren't expecting the teams to be quite as aggressive as they actually were. And that's likely in part because they had an easy time sneaking up on us, they had an easy time setting up against us and stuff like that. But yeah, there's a bit more to it than just that, but our setups were slow. We were very slow at like taking stuff and doing stuff like that.
I know for a fact that the deafening of the team leader is part of the issue.
How many times do I have to say I'm not the team leader and I didn't deafen myself?
And you surely should have faster execution on stuff you've done repeatedly. Like, even when I was playing with you, we did it faster. The quality of nades was questionable as well, you know this. But the amount of money spent on grenades was also atrocious, because they were going unused and you were getting killed very quickly into rounds without using grenades. That was one of the biggest killers of your economy, was the needless amount of grenades. Especially on Emma. Like, you were having to... You were lurking a lot at the time, rather than doing team play, like towards the latter half of the first half. Very much wasted a lot of money on nades. Only buy grenades if you're going to use them, not on the off chance that you might.
Yeah, this is something I've known about for a long time. I don't use nades properly. I often buy them and then don't ever end up using them. This is something I'm entirely aware of, and it's something that I have actually been trying to work on. But I still forget to use smokes and flashes and stuff as much as I probably should. This is entirely a personal thing. It's entirely a personal issue that I have, something I need to work on. It's what I was alluding to at the start. This is my main issue with... this is the main issue in my skill at the moment. It's my use of utility. I'm entirely aware of that. Grenades, I would say I'm actually kind of okay with. Like, I use grenades pretty often when there's somebody like around a corner or something like that. But it's just smokes and flashes. I only really use them if it's a setup or like a lineup or something like that. I don't tend to just throw them willy-nilly, and I don't know why. I don't know why I don't do that. But that is my bad. The bit at the end though about only buying nades if you're going to use them, not on the off chance that you will. I disagree with that on the basis of, if you use your nades anyway, it doesn't really matter. If you actually use your nades dynamically and fluidly throughout a round, it doesn't matter if you're buying a bunch of nades that you might not need during the round, because in the off chance that, a situation comes up where, you can throw a flash over like a roof or something, or like around a corner, you can do it. And in that case, you should do it, because, you're probably not losing anything. If you die anyway, then you've just lost the money anyway, so it doesn't change anything. The problem isn't that I'm buying nades that I'm not using, the problem is that I'm buying nades and then not using them. And that is entirely an issue that I'm fully aware of. I know that's an issue I have. It's something that I need to work on. Only I can work on that. That being said, the other people on the team probably do it too, but I know that I am, a very bad offender of that. I most of the time die without throwing a single nade, and I often, buy full utility when I have the money for it. So yeah, that's entirely an issue on me. I fully take the blame for that. That is entirely my fault.
Bonus point from me. Aston being able to buy an auto sniper really made me wonder, what if Emma was given an op at any point in that half? You would have been able to hold mid pretty easily, at least con, because they were slow to peak con. Their op only started peaking after you ended up going apps every fucking round. But even if you're playing poor, otherwise, you can point and click adventure. Everyone knows it. You're not dog shit with the op. You could have picked up a fair few kills with it, and instead you bought scouts and Kriegs. To be fair, the Krieg got you 1 kill. I won't deny that gun got 1/3 of your overall kill contributions in the entire game. But you could have done so much more with an op, in my personal opinion.
Cool, so I didn't actually use an op pretty much through this entire tournament. I never really got a chance to use one, and you could say, but you could have just bought one. However, you have to keep in mind, we had a player who was buying scouts most rounds on every map. So most rounds, we already had a sniper rifle in play before I was able to really consider or say anything about buying an op. And I could have maybe just said, like, hey, I'm gonna have money after this round to buy an op, can I buy one? I'm gonna buy one, whatever. But God, I just, like, towards the end of the first day, I had so little use of ops and even scouts, that I didn't feel confident using an op, because I just didn't have, like, any practice throughout that entire tournament with an op. I didn't really have, like I knew if I was to have used one, like, towards the end of the tournament anyway, I would have probably ended up just missing shots because I was just not quite accustomed. You know, I would have been a bit off, basically, is what I'm trying to say, because I hadn't used one at all up until that point. So I figured it would have made more sense for me just to keep using AKs and rifles than use a weapon that I might get a few kills with, but I'm also probably going to fuck up quite a lot with. And the AWP is definitely a weapon where you need to hit your shots, otherwise you're burned. And because of how like strong the weapon is and the role it presents in holding stuff and pushing stuff, you really do need it. And if you lose it, it has a negative impact on the team for the rest, or has a negative impact on the round for the rest of your team. Because the AWP is a very important and powerful weapon in a round. So yeah, I probably could have done with using an AWP more, but like I said, we already had someone buying sniper rifles, and I don't want to add another sniper rifle to that list if we don't need one. Same reason I told him not to buy a scout at the start of the game, because we didn't need one. It's a waste of money, it's poor economy management. Yeah.
Now, before I contest the points that Emma made about the game and her afterthoughts on the state of a resolution, I must quickly cover the issue of the casting. The caster's there to entertain. You claim he was reacting too strongly about what UKG were doing, yet he always spoke in a hype voice, and the majority of the events in the game were UKG doing stuff. You did very little in that game. It is hard to make a stomp entertaining when it's a known group versus a team that has already been squashed by another team of their level. Additionally, to shut Psy up, the commentators were mentioning UKG in a resolution about 65 to 45 ratio. Two Doors, the only caster with 2 doors, was commenting on your team's activity quite frequently, but it's still hard to talk that much about such a messy and bare bones performance like the one you happen to display. To be honest, most of what happened in that game was poor buys and getting fragged. And I have to make the closing statement on this issue very matter of fact. The caster is doing his best to make the game fun to watch for people that aren't fans of UKG or detractors of IR21. That's not him being rude or being a dickhead. It's just him playing Texas Hold'em with a 2-7 offsuit, and you're the dealer who provided them that shit hand.
To be clear, and the reason he's bringing this up is because I talked about this in the stream a few days ago. I don't have anything against the casters for speaking about a resolution the way they did. I really don't. Two Doors was actually, like, he felt like he was trying to be sort of polite about it, but Retro was very much just kind of rude about us, and that's his job. Yeah, I acknowledge that. His job is to make the matches interesting to watch, but it still feels like shit to have your team be talked down on by somebody that doesn't know anything about it. And yeah, you can make a safe assumption from our match against Obtained that we were going to lose. But it still sucks to be on the receiving end of that, right? Like, I don't have anything against the casters, I just didn't like the casting. And that's nothing against them. They did exactly what they were paid to do. It just sucks to be on the receiving end of it.
Now, I'm going to start with Emma's goals for the tourney. Sparking something, which is not ideal in this environment, I will admit for you. You could lose Face-It tournaments first round consecutively, over and over again, get the same point about your inadequacies across. There's no reason to lose your money and time, and no reason to gain stress and strained relationships. It was a massive waste.
Last I checked, everyone was fine with committing their money and time to doing this. Like, nobody had any real objections to it. Everyone was fine with it. We didn't really have anything that was going on anywhere. People already scheduled days off like a month in advance for work and stuff. So there wasn't like anything wrong there. For the money, like, it was £15 entry. That's really not much. And I'm pretty sure most of us knew that we probably weren't going to get our money back. As for the stress and strained relationships, there might have been some stress at the start, but as it went on, we very quickly began to sort of accept that we weren't winning anything, and our goal was to win as many rounds as possible, not to win any matches. Strained relationships, only thing I can think of is maybe that one incident in round 4 that you might be referring to, but there really weren't any strained relationships from this that I'm aware of. If people are unhappy with how things went, they haven't said anything about it. So, yeah, I don't know what you're getting at here.
I'm more inclined to believe that you were driven by a desire to play in a proper tournament over bettering the team. I think it was a selfish decision at the end of the day.
Yeah? I wanted to play in a tournament. I don't think this has ever been a secret. I wanted to play in a tournament. I don't see how that's selfish to want to play in a tournament, but it was also to prove to them that, you know, we're not good. I can have multiple reasons for wanting to do something. Is that a crime? Is it wrong for me to want to play a tournament? Is it wrong for me to want to do that? I don't see the relevance here. It's like I don't understand how me wanting to play a tournament and me also wanting to prove to the people that I'm playing the tournament with that we have a way to go before we can be good in tournaments is in any way makes me a bad person. Does it? I don't think I ever claimed that I didn't want to play in a tournament. Why would I have wanted to enter a tournament if I didn't want to enter a tournament? That's such a weirdly strange thing to claim.
The only attitude that really needed changing was Sai's before tournament, because he was hell-bent, determined that he could beat multiple teams in that tournament and you could make your money back. When the quality of those teams versus you, a completely different pedigree. He was either cocky and playing it up, or was just delusional to a scary degree, so I will agree in that regard.
I think it's more just that he underestimated how good the other teams would actually be, and didn't think that this LAN event that is one of the biggest LAN events in the UK wouldn't attract some of the best teams in the UK. I wouldn't call him delusional or whatever the other thing you said was, I forgot, sorry. But yeah, this was definitely a moment of, oh shit, we're not good for him, that I wanted. And like I said, the main other secret reason that I did it was because I wanted it to be like well, we're not good, but we could be good for everyone. As in, like, a moment of, we could be as good as these people one day if we kept practicing. That was very much the other part of my intention, because obviously I wanted to play a tournament, and the other part was, I want us to have the drive to keep getting better and play in more tournaments. Again, I don't see how that is selfish or anything, but in case of Sai, it was definitely needed. In the case of everyone else, I don't know how effective that was. We'll see. But Yeah, I feel like you're focusing too much on small things here.
I do not believe for a second it was to spark something.
It was.
Secondly, when it comes to practice, you knew yourself that Cameron didn't want to play without Matty. You didn't have the foresight to have multiple reserves to quickly replace him, and you never established a proper schedule with everyone, which ultimately falls on you as team leader.
No, I didn't know that. I didn't know that Cameron only wanted to play if Matty was on the team. If I knew that, I wouldn't have been banging my head against the wall for 2 weeks trying to get any kind of response out of him, because we knew that Matty wasn't going to play, so obviously if Cameron was only going to play if Matty was going to play, he wasn't going to play, and I didn't know that. I wouldn't have wasted my time going after him if I knew that. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Secondly, we didn't have any reserves. That's why we needed Cameron. That's why, in the last 2 weeks, we panicked and brought on the first person we could, which was Firebuster. We've always had an issue of not having enough people. That has always been the primary problem behind a resolution. We never have players. And that is exactly the kind of problem we had in this situation. As for the scheduling, yeah, that is a huge issue. But, again, I'm not the team leader. How many times do I have to say this? I consider myself the manager and the spokesperson, the face, the figurehead, but I don't consider it my responsibility to come up with the schedules. Ideally, we would need to actually assign somebody as the person to come up with to be the in-game leader and actually do the kind of scheduling and figuring out stuff like that. Because that's not something that I feel like I am specialised in. It's not something I feel like I'd be able to do very well. But when it comes to managing the overall sort of state of a resolution and keeping up the public side of it, I can do that just fine. I've had plenty of experience with that kind of thing. It's just when it comes to actually scheduling and stuff like that and working with lots of different people to figure out what times work best for people, that's something I don't have experience with. That's something I am not qualified to do.
There are many routes to have this not be an issue, but spreading the blame to Jordan is a quick example, because this one you were quite vocal about. It's quite a spineless decision, because your 3 to 4 man practice sessions weren't productive to begin with. It was just playing CS. He was probably more prepared mentally playing Dota and having a gay old time than fucking about in pubs and not caring with you.
So I believe what he's referring to when he's shifting the blame to Jordan is when I said that it bothered me he was spending more time playing other games than CS. Does that seem like a fair thing to be annoyed about? When we have a CSGO tournament in under a month, and one of our players spends more time playing other games that aren't CSGO and aren't even first-person shooters than actually playing the game we're going to be playing in a tournament for. That, to me, seems like a fair thing to be annoyed about, because the things you're doing when you're playing Dota, for instance, are not transferable to CS. Sure, maybe he's more mentally... I mean, it's fucking... Jordan's always mentally prepared. Like, I don't know if I've ever known a time Jordan hasn't been mentally prepared for anything. Like, what we needed was we needed more time to practice, to, like, go over fundamentals, keep warm, you know, warm up, stay warm until the tournament, and then just do our best, right? Like, I feel like we would have had a better run overall if everybody had plenty of time to keep up on the fundamentals, keep sort of stay warm on that, and actually play the game and actually sort of keep refreshing their memory on certain things and stuff like that. I don't feel like that's wrong of me to think that. That seems entirely reasonable to me.
Also, when it comes to roles, you had all the roles decided apart from Aston. Don't lie to cover up your per match organisation.
Except you also have to think the addition of Aston throws off the roles that we've already decided on, because we don't know what role he's going to fill, and if he fills a role that somebody else already fills, then we're going to have a problem. And because of that, we went into the tournament with a more puggy playstyle than we kind of expected, because we weren't exactly sure what role he was going to fill, we weren't exactly sure what he was going to do, and we weren't exactly final on the roles either. We never really, like, formally, officially decided on the roles. I mean, we didn't even have an IGL. That's, like, the number one role that we should have had, and we never decided on one. What makes you think that we did have our roles properly decided? Like, yeah, we figured, okay, I was probably gonna warp. We figured, okay, James was maybe gonna secondary AWP. We figured, okay, Jordan was probably gonna rifle, Sai was probably gonna support. But it was never final. We didn't have anything set in stone.
Just because you don't do things properly in a game doesn't mean you never decided the roles before. You even made bloody player sheets. Yeah, the bios on Twitter. Like we all saw those. Don't make up shit.
So these bios on Twitter, he's referring to these. I'm going to flash them up on screen now, so you can see them. I'd like to draw attention to the first version of the one that I made for myself, which was entirely a joke. When making these sheets, we still had no idea what roles we were actually going to put on them. The roles we put on these were very much, probably, we don't fucking know. Like, we never had roles finalised. The roles that were put on these were the most safe, general roles we could have come up with, because we didn't know what people were going to do. So we just, like, if you look, pretty much everyone is rifle. Pretty much everyone is listed as being rifle. Sai, I think, is the only one who's actually listed as support. Maybe someone else is listed as support? I can't think of anyone else that is there, off the top of my head without looking at them. Obviously, I'll see them when I'm putting them onto the video, but off the top of my head right now, I don't think anyone else is listed as support, because we didn't have roles finalised. And we still don't. That's the whole point. Those sheets were, like, very spur of the moment, just put rifle on it if we don't know. It doesn't, those sheets didn't mean anything. They were just there as kind of like promotional spiel.
Last point in the management side of things, you could have easily distanced James from a resolution like you did to me, dealt with the backlash fine, and you would have had your ideal team. But you never confront people, and it's one of your biggest weaknesses as the heart of the group.
I agree, I'm really bad at confronting people. It's something I need to work on, but this ideal team thing, we've already talked about why it wasn't going to happen, and again, we couldn't get rid of James, even if we didn't want him on the team, because we already agreed he was going to play this tournament, and that was that. And it would be incredibly rude and disrespectful towards him, after agreeing, like, 2 months in advance that we were going to play this with him, to then just kick him off the team because we wanted somebody who was better.
I'll add a bonus point here. If it was to have one tournament with James before he inevitably has to stop playing because he'll have a lot of his time taken up with his child, then fair enough. But you don't act out of a charitable motive and then act spiteful and resentful afterwards, because that's not a good faith argument at all. That is like throwing money to beggars in the street and kicking them down if they ever come to thank you. It's a shocking display of morality.
Like I said earlier, we already decided, like, a month or two in advance, way before we even knew about this tournament, that we were going to play this tournament with him when it happened. And the tournament happened, so we played it with him. It has literally nothing to do with the child, because we agreed this before we found out he was having a child, and I really don't have anything against James, because, like, the way this is being phrased in the video makes it sound like I don't like James or something, and I know I've not really talked on it, but to break it down, basically, James gets sort of very tilted very easily in CS, and that kind of gets under my skin a bit. Couple that with just kind of, I don't like the way he plays the game in certain instances and certain situations and things like that. Like, that's stuff you can work on, that's stuff you can change, but it does bother me a little bit. But again, I have no issue with James personally. He's a really nice guy to talk to. He's nice to play, like, other games with, like, PvE stuff. It's basically just CS, and probably, I've heard him, like, playing Dota and stuff like that as well. Like, any sort of PvP games or, like, competitive games or anything like that. It just, that's what bothers me and annoys me. But again, like, the timing on this turned out to be just perfect, though, because it's like, he's having a child in the future, so this tournament that we already agreed with him we were going to play is going to be, like, his only chance to probably play a tournament before the child is born. So, it worked out perfectly. Like, this can be our last sort of big event. And obviously we're still going to play games with him. Like, we're not going to stop playing games with him because of this. It's just, if in the future we do play more tournaments, he probably won't be able to do them with us because of the child now. So yeah, this was, like, just perfect timing and perfectly, like, fine, in my opinion. I don't like the fact that you brought my morality into question over this for some reason. That seems unusual. But other than that, yeah, just more misinformation.
Quickly now, for the other teams supposedly playing disrespectfully, this doesn't need to be talked about in great depth because it's glaringly obvious what the answer is. I will agree somewhat with your perspective. Wanting to beat soundly and properly is fine, I understand that. But acting as if you, as a team, demand any respect from these people, when I am correct in stating that only you, Emma, were consistent in performing okay to good in majority of the games, not even all the games, is fallacious. It's completely fallacious.
My issue with the other teams treating us with disrespect isn't necessarily that they treated us disrespectfully or that we feel like we deserve respect. It's that it just seems unsportsmanlike to me. It doesn't feel right. Like, sure, we are a worse team and we lost everything really badly, but it feels wrong to me that they would treat us with so little respect, so little dignity, that they would destroy us, but they would do it in a way that suggested they just didn't think of us as anything. Contrast that with the only team from that tournament that I really thought was, like, okay. I mean, even Obtained was okay as well in the one match we played against them. But Endpoint Academy, huge shout out to Endpoint Academy. They treated us so respectfully. They treated us so nicely. They, even though they, like, didn't need to, like any of the other teams there, they treated us in a sportsmanlike way. And they played that game like they would play any other game. They didn't give us shit. They didn't treat us in a way that, I mean, we still lost to them 16-0, but I felt happier losing to them 16-0 because they actually gave us respect, right? Like, I understand, like, another aspect of being that sort of, disrespectful is the tilting effect, but it doesn't feel, like, it's the same as the casters earlier, right? It doesn't feel nice to be treated with disrespect as though you aren't anything, when, you know, the least they could do is just show, like, a little bit of respect. That's it. Just a little bit of, just a little bit of friendliness, and it would have been okay. As for you saying that it's fallacious, I'd like to point out all of the fallacious claims you've already made throughout this video, which, to be honest, is exactly what I would expect from someone who wants to be a politician.
I will also quickly mention the stupid knife fight moment in the Inferno match against UK Generalz. Why would he throw a round by dying to one stab? I thought you hated them playing against you as if you were a joke. Too bad you became such in the end.
Didn't you say that you watched all of our matches? Surely you'd realise that in that Inferno game, we were doing Strat Roulette. We weren't taking that game seriously in the slightest. like, going for a knife fight at the end wasn't us being a jerk. That was us committing to just doing stupid shit that entire game. That last Inferno game wasn't serious at all. We basically threw it. And if that gets us into trouble with Epic 33, sorry, but we basically threw that game. But because we already knew ahead of time, if we were going to play UK Generals again, which is what it was looking like, we wouldn't stand a chance against them again. We already lost them once. We knew we probably weren't going to win again. So we decided, hugely ahead of time, if that were to happen, we were going to do Strat Roulette. So that's what we did in that game. Now, as to why would he throw a round, it was like, what? It was like 14-13-1 or something? Like, God, the game was about to end. There were like a few rounds left. It just made no sense. There was no reason for it. The game was already only about like 20-30 minutes, so it was already a short game. The game was already close to ending. All it would have done is it would have let us do another Strat Roulette, and the game would have maybe lasted like another 30 seconds longer. Is that really a problem? If the game lasts 30 seconds longer than it should?
Now for your perspectives on the players, this is going to be fun. Yes, you can be angry at James for tilting easily and ruining at least one game for the team, but don't forget two other relevant points. You and Sai. You are very much in a factor in not controlling James or getting Sai to. And additionally, regardless of what game knowledge Sai has, he was by far the weakest player in the tournament. And when your team is picturesque puggy, that's a big issue.
You say this like you know anything that happened in that tournament. To be fair, James shut up pretty quick after we had that moment on round 4 of that Mirage game. He was obviously tilted, and we didn't pause like we said earlier, but he didn't really continue being a problem. He was just in a bad mindset for the rest of the game and probably the next few games. It didn't really warrant any like additional talking about it. That would have just made it worse, guaranteed. You're speaking like you know what's going on. You don't know what was going on. You weren't there. On top of that, I do agree though, I am bad at dealing with stuff like that, but I already acknowledged it earlier that I'm bad at dealing with people, so. As for Sai being the weakest link, I don't know, I think he had a few games where he had like decent impact. Like, I wouldn't say anyone in that tournament was necessarily the weakest player. Although if you're looking at exclusively the stats, you might say that. But again, the stats only paint so much of a picture. The rest of the picture is the communication and everything that we were going through together as a team. So yeah, Sai, statistically, I don't know, I never actually looked at the kills or deaths during any of our matches because I was more focused on the game. But from my point of view, everybody did about as well as I would have expected them to do. And we all, as far as I'm aware, put in our best. Given the circumstances, obviously James was tilted, but given the circumstances, I think we all put in our best.
As much as you might resent Jordan, James and Aston for not knowing proper nade setups, it's very much your fault, again, for not teaching them in your play sessions instead of playing normal CS.
It also goes back to a scheduling problem, because we didn't properly schedule proper practice sessions for utility and stuff like that, which is a different problem entirely, and not necessarily strictly on me. Also, there are maps that you can use that teach you utility. There are YouTube videos you can watch that teach you utility. That's not exclusively on me to teach the team members things that they can learn themselves in their own time when they want to.
The narrative of everyone else was to blame for the practice problem because you and Sai were playing together daily and inviting them is weak, since you never took advantage of having the other players with you when you did. So their flawed grenades have you as an aiding factor as well. You can't deny it.
I don't deny this. We should have had more utility practice sessions, more like full team setup sessions, but, and this is the big problem, I don't think we ever actually had a single session with all 5 team members that were going to be playing in the tournament together. So even if, we didn't have the chance to properly go over nade setups and how we were going to execute sites and how we were going to enter sites and how we were going to split the map and stuff like that. We never got a chance to do any of that. And you could argue, but you could have just done that individually, right? You could have done it once with Jordan, once with Jim. That's such a huge time investment, right? And we were already short on time. And can you imagine teaching 3 different people how to do nade setups for numerous sites on numerous maps, and then hoping they remember them all, and then being able to execute the right nade setups and the right locations at the right moment in the right time on the right map? That is so many, different layers of convoluted. It just wasn't possible for us to properly practice setups like that. It just simply was not possible.
Additionally, make Sai the coach for games so you can do calls. He's a nerd for this game, and if his regular play when he's trying his hardest is what we saw in the tournament, then having Sai is a handicap in game. Good smokes and flashes are downright useless if the team and the player themselves can't execute on those smokes and flashes. If Sai were the coach, then without James, you could have the most desired and best performing team possible from the tier list. If you could get Matty to actually play competitively with James gone, that is.
So I'm not sure what point you're trying to make here. Sai should be the coach because he's not good at the game, but then you say that his smokes and flashes are decent, it's just that the rest of the team isn't playing off them, so he should be the coach because people aren't playing off of his smokes and flashes. What, isn't that an issue with the rest of the team where we all need to play off of his smokes and flashes rather than an issue with himself? That seems really backwards. If the issue is the team not playing off of smokes and flashes, we should be playing off smokes and flashes, not removing the player who's doing those smokes and flashes, right? That makes sense? We're clear on that? And again, we're back to this tier list thing of, you can have Cameron and Matty if you can convince Matty to play, if James isn't there. This is something we apparently skipped over earlier. We skipped over this earlier because it made no sense to me. Apparently, Matty wouldn't play if James was there, but that isn't true. I don't know where that came from or why he's perpetuating it throughout this video, but it's just another one of those things that he thinks it's true, so he's saying it.
Map-wise, you should stop trying to not play Puggy maps. You're not good enough to the point where you can bullshit people on maps they're not as familiar with. You're so weak as a team that Puggy maps are the only maps you have a proper chance against. Chance against teams like UK Generalz are obtained without any good team chemistry. But I have to admit, you deafening yourself is quite the opposite of building team chemistry as is. And don't use that vertical match where you got a fair few rounds as an example. You weren't winning that. They were buying PPs consistently, for the whole second half I saw.
Oh boy, there's a lot to unpack here. So we have the thing about me deafening again. Talks about that, write that off. I never did that throughout this tournament. That leaves the issue of Puggy maps versus non-Puggy maps. I would personally describe Mirage, Inferno, and Dust 2 as the main Puggy maps. You could argue Overpass is one. I would sort of fringe on it, but it's not a very commonly played one, so I'd argue it's maybe not as much of a Puggy map. Ancient, possibly you could consider a Puggy map in how it's laid out, but again, I feel like that's not a super common map pick at the moment, although, some teams are picking it a lot because they want to try it out and learn to play the new map. But generally speaking, it's those 3. Mirage, Inferno, Dust 2. So, we never played Dust 2. The only Inferno game we played was the one that we did Strat Roulette in, so that one doesn't really count. Which leaves the only proper game we played on a Puggy map as the Mirage one, which, to be fair, not a good example, because that game was already tainted by a bunch of other stuff. It was tainted by James, it was tainted by just poor performance in general. That game was already terrible, so it's already a bad example. But if you compare how we did on that map compared to any other map that we played, we did better on every single other map. And we didn't just play one Vertigo game, for your information, we played 2 Vertigo games. I'm not sure which one you're referring to, but we did decent in both Vertigo games. And the best map that we actually played was the first Ancient game we played on the first day. I forget which team it was, the one we went 16-0 against. I don't know if you watched that whole game, but we came consistently incredibly close to winning rounds in that map. Even though we didn't win a single round, we came consistently very, very close to doing it. We got a lot of bomb plants, we got a lot of after plants, and we had a lot of rounds where there were only like maybe 1 or 2 CTs left, and then we would just mess up the end of the round, basically. So we did do better, considerably better, consistently better in every other map than Mirage. So I think not playing Puggy maps is the right call, because we were doing better in the non-Puggy maps.
If you want to play Ancient, that's fine. If you don't like Infernal, that is fine. But for the love of God, either get good or get out, because I haven't seen any good developments on your behalf for half a year.
I would somewhat argue the same thing. We haven't really seen much development as a team, but that's because we haven't really had a lot of chances to play as a team, right? Again, like, that's part of the reason I wanted to do this tournament, is so I could get people maybe more fired up about it, so that we could develop more as a team. That's what I was referring to before and alluding to before. That's why I wanted to do it.
I would recommend getting everyone in the team to meditate and reflect on themselves so that they don't get tilted and retain composure regardless of the situation. This would help you not only in losing situations, but also when you're winning strongly, so not to lose the focus and throw. Though, in this tournament as an example, when you're losing badly is the real concern, because it took you till the end of the tournament to stop taking it fully seriously.
I'm pretty sure Jordan wasn't taking this fully seriously from the start. And to an extent, neither was I, like, after the first couple games. I don't think anybody was properly taking this seriously after the first couple games. After we got destroyed the first few times, and then especially after we went 16-0, we were happy just to win any rounds. Like, we were still playing the game seriously, but that doesn't mean we were taking the game seriously. If we were taking the game seriously, we would have only accepted winning the match, not winning a round, right? Our bar was low, but that doesn't mean we were taking the game seriously. It just means we were playing the game competitively and legitimately, but having fun with it. And that's what we did for most of the matches. We just had fun with it.
My final point I shall make, because this is actually turning out longer than I intended, and I don't want to pick apart 2 hours of your stream. You need to be more open with everyone in a resolution. This includes Sai, he needs to be more open as well. The lack of confrontation and the unwillingness to criticize and punish people is downright ridiculous. Sai and you always go on about needing leadership, but at the end of the day, what you need is some backbone, because you aren't capable enough as it currently stands. And if you aren't swapping out team members to get a new leader, getting a new roster, it might be the best if you never had any power over the team again, and instead only had influence outside of the games as the owner and as the Resolution Twitter account, which is still one of the worst things you've done. You sound so amateurish and shit in it.
So this section is a little bit harsh, but I'd probably say somewhat accurate. Aside from the calling me the leader again, I really do just consider myself the owner and manager and face. So that part is questionable, because the part about me only having influence as the owner and as the Twitter account is basically what I consider myself already. And as for the Twitter account being shit, thanks. But yeah, no, I do agree that I do need to be more honest with people and more sort of like upfront and confrontational about things, but I find that really hard to do. That's just not really something I can do easily, which is why, like I said, I don't consider myself the leader, and I leave that up to someone else, although we don't really have someone else to fill that role right now, so yeah, that's kind of a problem. The bit about Sai, like, to an extent, he's taken on, like, semi-leader role, so semi applies to him, but still, like, we don't have, like, an official proper leader, which is what would resolve all of these issues that you've brought up. Basically, every problem that you've brought up would be resolved by us having a proper, designated IGL leader, someone to actually schedule things, organise things, and deal with stuff. Because, as it is, like I said, I don't consider myself that person. I consider myself the owner, kind of like top level, just kind of looking down on it, like, I'll have final say on things if need be, but I'm hands off about it. That's how I see myself in relation to this, okay? I don't see myself as the almighty leader that dictates everything, because that's just not who I am.
Yeah, I think that should do it for part 3. Might as well just conclude on this now so that people can skip ahead and, get a quick rundown if it's TLDR, A resolution needs a do-over.
I agree.
You need a new team with people who actually improve with ridiculous amounts of hours in-game.
Just because somebody doesn't seem to have improved doesn't mean that they have. They could have improved in other ways that aren't immediately obvious, like throwing utility. And if their aim isn't up to the same level as their other abilities, then they could, say, put more time into refining that. It's almost like, no matter how much time you've put into something, it's possible to put more time into a certain aspect of it, and then later on you can put more time into a different aspect if you really wanted to. It's almost like there's many different things in Counter-Strike that you're able to practice and improve at. Crazy, I know, but it's true.
You need a team with a leader who can lead.
Yes.
You need to not just hide away whatever rubs you the wrong way and act like a child while only confiding in one singular teammate and friend.
I admit, this is a personal issue. I do need to deal with this. You are right. I just find it, like I said, hard to confront people. So that's something I've just got to work on. But yeah, you're 100% correct. I do need to work on that.
Sai needs to get a grip and start being the damn coach instead of pissing away time getting fragged.
Again, if the issue with Sai is that he uses nades that people don't play off, then him becoming the coach wouldn't help anything. He needs to use the nades and we need to play off them. That's the solution to that. You're looking at the wrong solution for a valid problem.
Jordan needs to decide if he can be arsed doing this again, or having a proper competitive experience with his uni team.
Have you listened to anything that Jordan has said about his uni team? It doesn't sound like a proper competitive experience at all. It sounds like just a bunch of people dicking around and having fun, which is exactly what we were doing, except we paid to enter a tournament. It doesn't really sound much different, realistically. The main difference is he gets to play in tournaments without paying.
James, Aston, Matty and Cameron need to decide if they even want to play as a team with you, since if you and Sai are a package deal for playing games with, you might as well give up on them.
Again, Matty wasn't playing with us properly anyway. Cameron, I don't know what was up with Cameron, but he wasn't playing with us anyway. Aston was the only one who was, and that's because we needed a fifth. That was literally the only reason he played CS with us. It was because we needed a fifth, and he wanted to help us out. And from what it sounds like, he enjoyed the experience, even if we got absolutely dicked constantly. From what I've heard anyway, it sounds like he did enjoy it. All of us enjoyed it, even if we just got dicked. Like, it was an experience. People to have experiences, to have the experience, right? That's why I wanted to play a tournament that you accused me being selfish for doing earlier for some reason.
I'm not expecting a response from anyone in the resolution, in all honesty, who I know will probably not see this unless it's shared by other members. It's not as if anything will change even if you do see it.
Well, you got a response even if you didn't expect one, and as for stuff not changing, almost everything you said was stuff that I was already aware of, or I'm already working on, or stuff that is just blatantly misguided and misinterpreted and misread from the original intentions. So I don't know if that says more about you than it does us, but I'm impressed that you managed to spend about 10 minutes of a 20-minute video talking exclusively about how much I suck after I banned you from my Discord server. So, yeah, that's really funny to me.
Well, I might be blocked. That might be the next development. Who knows?
I think I already blocked you, actually, so I'm one step ahead of you. Don't worry about it.
But heed my warning. Else you're not gonna gain anything from playing CS, let alone competitively. Fucking Blackout had a better track record than you, and they were perpetually pissed.
So Blackout won 3 more rounds than we did overall, but they also forfeited like 4 of their games. However, the group stage that they played in, because they didn't play the elimination stage, they forfeited both of their elimination stage matches. The group stage, they were in a different bracket to us, so the results that they got, winning 3 more rounds than we did, isn't really comparable, because we didn't play in that group, so we don't know if we could have got the same amount of rounds or more if we played in that group. So this is literally a stupid comparison, because it literally doesn't mean anything.
The resolution will just end up as a waste of human life if it continues like this, like genuinely. And the way it's been continues ineptly, in case you were wondering.
It's almost like we weren't taking this particularly seriously, and we're not a legitimate super serious org or anything. I seem to think I'm running this like a business when it makes no money. Why would I be doing that? It doesn't make any money. It's completely non-profit. It's just, the way I see it is a bunch of friends just doing something for the fun of it. And I did want to try and like push that, like, you know, we can play CS competitively kind of thing, but like ultimately I just wanted to play CS and have a good time, right? And if we do end up playing more tournaments after this, then cool. But right now, we're taking a break. Right now we're taking a break, and we're thinking about what we want to do, and if we are going to do more tournaments, how we're going to prepare for it and stuff like that. But obviously, all you've seen is one side of it, and you've extrapolated from that side that you've seen just how bad this is overall, and how this is nothing but my glorified dream to play a CS tournament. And to be fair, you're not wrong. I think I've admitted that before, actually. I think I've actually admitted that before, that I did just start, that I started a resolution with the intention of playing in a tournament. I think I may have actually said that in the school video, the hour-long school video. I might have mentioned in there that I definitely mentioned a resolution around the end of it, but I don't know if I mentioned that I wanted to play a tournament, and that's partly why I started a resolution. This has been a 4-year-long dream come true, and the fact that we got destroyed means nothing, because that dream has been fulfilled. And I kind of want to do it again. And if we get destroyed again, I don't care. It's going to be fun. Right? That's my takeaway from this. I don't know what your takeaway from this is, but yeah, like, you're giving us over analysis as if we're super funded and we can fix all these problems immediately, and we have access to, you know, all the UK top talent, but we don't. We're just a group of friends that do our thing, and we thought it'd be fun to enter a tournament, and that's what we did. I'm not going to be making another video on this topic, by the way, so feel free to do your own response to this if you want. I don't give a shit. I'm not gonna do another one. I'm done with this. That's why I made this video as long as it was. I didn't want it to be an hour long, but as it went on, it became an hour long. I wanted to explain everything as clearly as possible so that hopefully there's no room for misinterpretation. But if you feel free to misinterpret something anyway, then I'm not going to correct you on it again, because this video should speak for itself as, you know, reconfirming everything that I've already said in that live stream, reconfirming everything I've said over the last few years in regards to a resolution and my intentions for it, and everything like that. This is probably definitively now the #1 place for information on a resolution. So thank you for making a video plugging the team. Yeah, by the way, the Discord server, it's links in the description of every video I've made, so if you want to join and you're not a toxic asshole, feel free to pop in and say hi, and you won't get banned.